School is now back in session. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing book recommendations for every major out there, specifically for college students or university students here in Canada. Hello, we are back. So a little fun fact about me is that I'm actually done school, but this is for a video for the people who are unfortunately going back to school, or fortunately for those who actually liked school. I personally hated school. I wanted to finish my university degree, get the heck out there, and just be someone who doesn't have to stress over exams, who doesn't have to stress over group projects, who doesn't have to stress over like reading chapters of like textbooks, you know, all that like fun anxiety stuff. I just wanted to say goodbye to it. But this is also for people who just are curious and who want to explore subjects that they weren't able to explore in their university days or in their college days, and they want to read books about specific majors so that they can have a little bit of a taste test of majors that they kind of said goodbye to, majors that they never experienced, and then just like learning about new different things. Now let's get started for our first recommendation and our first major. So the first major is actually for the musical majors out there, the theater majors out there, the people who are into arts and performing, no matter if you're doing stage production or if you're learning how to do like, you know, acting or like singing and things like that. This one is definitely for you. The recommendation that I do have for you if you are in this major is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. If you haven't read it already, this one was one of my favorite romantic comedies that happened in, I think 2019 was when this book was published. This involves an enemies to lovers romance in a Renaissance fair, and I loved it so much. Our heroine has a sister who accidentally got injured, and now she has to fly back to the town that her sister lives in to help take care of her sister's daughter, which is her niece. And the thing is that the niece is very excited about this Renaissance fair that's taking part in the town, and she needs a chaperone. Like, she needs an adult supervision to be there. And then our heroine actually goes, dresses up as a barmaid, and then just helps serve beer and like taking cash and things like that. While she's not really playing like one of the main roles in the Renaissance fair, she still has to pretend that she has like this certain dialect that, you know, you have when you're not properly educated back in the olden days. And she also has to interact with the very infuriating like manager of the Renaissance fair, who is responsible for putting up the Renaissance fair every single year. And what she learns is that our hero acts very differently in costume versus when he's out of costume. When he's out of costume, he's type A, he's not really that charming anymore, and he kind of gets on our heroine's nerves. But then when he's acting and he's pretending to be this like really knight in shining armor, Prince Charming type of character, he's very sweet to her. And so she's very confused about like who this man is. And during the Renaissance fair and in the summertime, she gets to know him more, and she starts to realize that maybe he's more like the character he's playing in real life. Now, the next recommendation that I do have for you is for people who are in accounting or in finance or in general business. Now, a fun fact about me was that I'm actually an accounting major. I finished, didn't like accounting, but you know, I finished the degree. Whatever, I work in finance now. So I really like this book because I like books where I'm reading the same subject that I'm studying for some reason, because like it makes me feel like, yes, I can do it too if the main character can do it. So when I picked up this book, it was actually after like my graduation, but I was entering into a new role that involved finance, and I wanted to read something like that to prep myself for like the mindset of the environment of in finance. This one's called Bond Girl, and it's by Erin Duffy, and it's a very old book that is probably out of print. So if you need to read it, then definitely go check out your library, check out thrift books, check out your thrift book stores, and try to get like an ebook copy. But this one involves our heroine, who actually just finished her fancy degree at university. I think she maybe got an MBA, but I'm not too sure. But she finished her years of university, and now she is interviewing at one of the biggest like investment banks slash investment firms slash like whatever, like just investments and finance and, you know, stock exchanges and trading. So she has to go through a lot of rigorous tests to get her certifications so that she can even start her position. And then we kind of walk through her daily life of what it's like to be kind of like a stock trader. And then if you're unfamiliar with like the finance world and you don't know what it entails, basically there are a lot of white men in that field, and that our female heroine has to deal with all these men who are kind of like dismissing her because she's a female, or just plainly being sexually harassing her, and she has to deal with males being in competition with her because they feel threatened by her. And there's like a lot of like cutthroat like corporate culture in this book, and that obviously actually happens in real life too as well. And what I liked about this one too was that our author was actually like a Wall Street like stock trader before, and then she decided to write a book, and this was her book, and she just stopped writing ever since, because I think she was just like, all right, I did my piece, had fun, dipped my toe in the water, but you know, this is not for me and I'm gonna step back out. But in the future, if she does write more books, I'm definitely going to read them because I quite enjoyed this one a lot. So I know I mentioned in my last book recommendation is for people who are in accounting or in finance, but really that book recommendation was for people who are in finance because it deals with, you know, stock trading and things like that. This one is specifically for accounting, which is literally like accounting for the numbers and making sure that the ledgers make sense, making sure that the financial statements are properly presented, and all that fun, glorious things. So the recommendation that I do have for you for my accounting majors out there is actually Hot Acid by Lauren Lane. And now this involves our female heroine who actually works for, I think, the IRS, because it's in America, and she is supposed to audit like these financial statements. And auditing entails making sure like the numbers match up, making sure that numbers are properly presented, and that there is no fraud occurring. But she starts to suspect that our hero's asset management firm is doing something a little fishy, because she's there to audit and she sees the financial statements and she sees that there is something missing and that is being fudged, and that there is just like this gray blur unknown area. And she does forensic accounting, which involves her even doing like a more deeper level dive into what's happening. So there's an enemies to lovers aspect on it, because she is trying to pin him for white collar crime, but our hero is innocent and he is annoyed that the heroine doesn't believe him. And now we have two warring sides with each other, because one doesn't want to go to jail, obviously, and the other one doesn't want to give up this big case, because she knows that if she can land it and she can solve it and she can catch it, she can have a chance to actually go into like the FBI, where her parents actually work too as well. So this one was very angsty and very intense, and I loved it so much. Now, where are all our science majors at? I know science is a very broad topic, but like people who are in biology, people who are in physics, people who are in chemistry, people who are doing their health degrees, people who are going into, you know, pre-med, like all those fancy little degrees. I don't have specific recommendations for you, but in general science, I feel like this is a good recommendation for you. This one's called A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole, and involves our heroine who is like brilliant in science. She literally works in the research labs, she does lab reports, she, you know, studies certain things that are happening in the body. She's very intelligent, but the way that she puts herself through like her master's degree and her university years, she actually has to work on the side because she doesn't come from a wealthy upbringing, but she's very passionate about the things she does, so she wants to strive towards this excellence. And I love that about her, because she's so hardworking and she's so brilliant at what she does. And she also works as a waitress on the side, so it's not beautiful work, but it pays the bills, and it certainly pays her tuition bills. But what happens is that she starts getting a lot of these like spam emails that tell her that, hey, you know what, you're actually the long lost princess of like this small country on the other side of the world. And she is rolling her eyes going like, man, like these people who are conning people are getting very creative now with their emails, or not getting creative and just being plain ludicrous. But she ignores them until one day she's like serving at this like event, and this really hot, handsome man comes up to her and goes, I need to speak with you. And she's like, who are you? And then he's like, I'm actually your betrothed. I'm the prince of like X country, and you were supposed to be my princess, and we need to go back to that country so that we can get married and we could save the royal family and things like that. And it was like really romantic in a lot of parts because our hero was so sweet and our heroine was so brilliant. The next recommendation that I have is for people who are in art and who are in design, who are doing like literal art, like an art major. And basically this one is a historical romance and involves our heroine who actually works kind of an unconventional job, because I don't really see many female heroines in historical romances that I've read that actually has this kind of job. But basically she is someone who deals with antiques, and she's very good at restoring things. She deals with sculptures a lot, and she's hired by our hero who wants her to restore these pieces inside his house. And he is just, you know, he's not taken aback by her beauty, because she dresses very plainly and she has glasses on, she's nerdy and she's quiet. So there's really nothing, there's no spark at first. But then the more and more they spend with each other, like the more time that they spend with each other in close proximity in his house, he starts to pick up little things here and there and starts to see her more and start to realize that she is a piece of beauty. And what's really annoying is when his sister actually transforms her into a more beautiful person by enhancing her beauty through giving her proper fitting clothes, making sure that her hair is pinned nicely, you know, giving her some tips to apply like certain, you know, makeup and things like that. And then suddenly he is captivated by her even more and more intrigued by her. And this is kind of like a workplace romance. It is a ugly duckling romance, and it's definitely something that is filled with a lot of tension, and it involves a lot of seducing too as well. Now, the next recommendation that I do have for you is for people out there who are English majors. There are a lot of romance novels that involves our heroine who is like a romance author or an author itself. But this one, I'm just gonna pick off right from the top of my head. This one's called Suddenly You by Lisa Kleypas, and it's also another historical romance. It involves our heroine who is actually a novelist. She's past her prime, which means that she is basically a spinster now. She wants to explore herself. She wants to learn more about what's happening in the bedroom. She wants to learn about her sexual like nature and things like that. So she actually hires a male escort. And what happens is that on the day, she opens up the door thinking that the male standing in front of her is the male escort. But in reality, it's actually our hero who is a book publisher and just wants the rights to her book so that he can make more money, and he's a businessman. So the next recommendation is for our viewers who are into journalism and who are majoring in journalism. Now, I had some friends who actually studied journalism, and I thought it was so cool because they would just kind of walk around campus with like cameras and equipment from the school, and then they would film certain news segments that would be broadcasted in auditoriums in the university and in the hallways. And it just seemed like such a fun idea to like be a news anchor at one point in my life, but I knew I couldn't do it because like public speaking, I don't know her. But for a recommendation for this specific subject is See Jane's Score by Rachel Gibson. And now this one is also like an older contemporary romance novel, and this one involves our heroine who is actually a sports journalist, and she is being thrown at this new topic and this new segment where she has to interview these hockey players. And our hero is very grumpy. This is definitely a grumpy sunshine trope and also enemies to lovers. Our hero is very grumpy and like does not want parasite journalists to like come his way and to basically dig up his past and bring that into the light, because he's tried very hard to like kind of hide it. But then our heroine needs to finish her jobs, so she keeps following him around, and this is kind of like their romance where they start to get to know each other, and then they like each other, and then, you know, she starts to understand why he is the way that he is. And just as I was filming this, I realized that I do have another recommendation for you for journalism majors out there. This one's called No Escape from War by Cynthia Eden, and this is one of my new favorite contemporary romances. It's also a romantic suspense. Basically, our female heroine is a journalist, and she's a news reporter, and there is a serial killer on the loose in the small town that she is living in with our hero. And people think that she's a serial killer now because she's chasing down, you know, clues and evidence and trying to report the news as it happens. But she always shows up at the crime scene, like just as the moment happens. So people think that she's the serial killer. So then our hero is hired to go track her down, but what we don't know, or what we do know, is that this is actually a second chance romance, and that our hero actually was dating her before, but they ended off on bad terms. So now he's just chasing her down as a joke because he knows that she's not the serial killer, but he really wants to see her in jail just for fun. And then the last major that I do have for you is for people who are in pre-med, people who are going into nursing, or people who are going into like the health field. I feel like that this is all applicable to you too as well. This one is called Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors by Sonali Dev. And this one tells the story of like a Pride and Prejudice retelling. Our heroine is actually Darcy, and then our hero is actually Elizabeth Bennet. And it's like this really cool romance where it involves like the Jane Austen characters that we all loved from Pride and Prejudice, but it's kind of like gender reversed, so it's kind of like flipping on both sides too as well. It's really fun when you're reading the book and you're like, oh, you are this character and you are this character, and you're kind of like putting it together as you're reading it, and you don't even realize it half the time until like you get like neck deep into it that you start to realize who is who. But anyways, it involves our heroine, who is a doctor. She's really good at her job. She saves lives. She does a lot of surgeries, and it's very stressful and it's hard on her, but she's doing it. And then accidentally she snubs our hero by making this comment towards him when he is catering at her family's event. And our hero automatically has a very, very ill reputation of her because she seems like she's a snob. Just because she's a doctor, he thinks that she is snubbing the people who are not in fields like her that is very elite, and that is just like saving lives, and that his job as a chef is not important. But then what happens is that our hero actually needs the help of our heroine very soon, because he starts to realize that his sister is in this like recovery process where she might actually lose her vision if she doesn't get really good surgery, and like the only surgeon available is our heroine. And I really enjoyed this one. It was a long book, but it was very angsty and it was very slow burn. But anyways, that is it for all my recommendations for the majors out there. Happy school year to you guys. I know that in Canada, university actually starts after Labor Day, but I know that there are a lot of Americans who actually started high school already, who already went back to school. And hopefully this is a good school year for everyone and that it's not too stressful. But I'll see you guys again next time in a new video. Bye.